I, you know, and he's saying when we drop back in second or third and long, he said we're not effective. They could learn a lot about this offense, Jody. If Gardner Minshew played because of an injury, not a benching, because of an injury.
Jumping back into the fray with hour number 2 here on Birds 365. You got Mac and Mac, McMullen and McDonald to take you home from here. Bob Groats, our bud from the Delco Times, is going to hop aboard less than 20 minutes from now. I pose a question to Barrett Brooks. I want to get your take on it as well, John. And I think I know where you're going to go, but I'm not positive. So here we go. Nick Sirianni came into this season, he and Howie Roseman, week 1, had a plan in place as to what they wanted the Eagles' offense to be. They tinkered with the roster accordingly. They did certain things roster-wise and play-calling-wise to achieve a goal, which was, this is what we want our offense to look like. Run-pass ratio, RPOs, a lot of things went into it, and they had it on display. Week 1 against Atlanta, it looked pretty damn good, as a matter of fact. But the Eagles started to lose games, and Nick Sirianni realized, we're actually more effective when we run the football 2-1 than when we throw the football 2-1. And they did just that. They adjusted on the fly. They made changes. They put what they wanted to do off to the side and decided, let's do what we need to do to win football games, which you're telling me they can't do with Greg Ward because he's too friggin' slow and he's not athletic enough, and you can't do it because Greg Ward can't help you win games. But that's a philosophical choice, not a production choice. So sometimes they draw down hard and fast on philosophical, and other times they show flexibility. Well, let me ask you about flexibility again. Going back to more 12 setups on offense and 2 tight end looks. Know that they kind of put that in mothballs when they traded Zach Ertz, but it was effective last year. I know Nick Sirianni wasn't here, but Jalen Hurts was here last year and had some success throwing the 2 tight ends, Goddard and to Ertz in their last couple of games last season. I'm doing anything to not have to throw the ball to Jalen Reagor. And if it means putting 2 tight ends out there and force feeding a guy like Tyree Jackson, who I know is very inexperienced and is just getting his feet wet in the NFL, again, I'm so down on Jalen Reagor. Any other option is a better option as far as I'm concerned. Will the Eagles even think along those lines?
No. And I think that was Howie more than anything else jumping the gun. And I think I even mentioned that on Birds 365 when they traded Zach Ertz, because he did go a little bit over the top with Tyree Jackson. I mean, this is a kid very early in the process of changing from quarterback to tight end, developmental prospect. I don't think he's ready to play heavy snaps. Barrett brought something up that I brought up, I think, last week about Kenny Gainwell. And I just threw it out there to throw it out there because he's a natural receiver. You had benched him because of the effectiveness of Jordan Howard in Boston Scott. Then he was back because Jordan Howard got hurt. Caught the football pretty well late, bobbled one a little bit, but was effective. By far their best receiver at the running back position, maybe more of a receiver than a runner, to be honest. So why not try him at the slot position? Now, I threw that out there with the full knowledge they wouldn't do it because of what I said. You don't practice something, you're not going to do it mid-season. Just something interesting to throw out there. One thing from early on, Nick Sirianni, like everybody else, like Doug Peterson, wanted to but couldn't. But Doug had different options, wants to play 11 personnel. Now, when Zach Ertz was here, you could say you couldn't really debate the fact that Zach Ertz is a more effective player than Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins or anybody else. But now that he's gone, you don't have that hurdle. So you can keep the 11 personnel on the field, which I do think helps the running game, as I said, with the spacing, as long as you keep the fast guys, Quez and Jalen, on the field. So my answer would be, and as I said, I'm with you. Well, Jalen Reagor shouldn't be playing. I think you got to send a message to the locker room about production, about, look, if you're not going to produce, we're going to send it. My answer would be elevate John Hightower, put him on the roster and play him. He can run. I don't know if he's going to be effective. I don't think he's going to be effective, but he can run. So you can't have that, excuse me, you can't have that spacing argument because he's just as fast, maybe faster than Jalen Reagor when it comes to stopwatch speed. And who knows? Maybe he can catch the football occasionally when it is a scramble drill. He would be the one guy where I would say at least you could, duplicate the success of what you're having. But we go all the way circle. And I finally brought it up with Barrett, Gardner Minshew for a week. Again, not benching, not anything. If Jalen Hurts is hurt, if he's going to be effective, I think you could learn a lot of things about this offense. And Gardner Minshew is not the answer. It's not about Gardner Minshew. It's about learning about Nick Sirianni's offense. If Gardner Minshew was out there, I might entertain playing your boy Greg Ward. I might entertain it. He might get the football. It's more important to have somebody who can catch it. You're not going to run the RPOs as much. You might run a few. Gardner's got some mobility, but you're not going to be so quarterback driven in the run game to where that's important to you. So again, and I was pretty shocked about what Nick Sirianni said about the passing game yesterday. I thought he was pretty above board. And, he didn't mention names, but we all know who the name is. And he said, passing game is not where we want it to be. I take a lot of pride in that. I've been on a lot of teams that have been very successful passing the football. So no one is taking that harder than me, and it's my job to get it fixed. And he's saying when we drop back in second or third and long, he said, we're not effective. They could learn a lot about this offense, Jody, if Gardner Minshew played because of an injury, not a benching, because of an injury.
Right, but you're doing a fine job of threading the needle, of not calling for Jalen Hurts' benching by going, it's got to be exactly 50-50. So I know where you're at. Here's the problem with it. Again, you have philosophical debates and then you have reality. I understand the philosophical advantage you could gain by playing someone other than Jalen Hurts. That you, by comparison, might be able to see something that tells you, well, no, here's the reason why it hasn't worked well enough with Jalen Hurts. It could be Jalen Hurts. It could be everything else. What is Gardner Minshew right now? What is he going to be able to differentiate? We know he's going to stay in the pocket. He's not going to pull it down and run the way that Jalen Hurts is. Is he going to throw it that much better? Is he going to be that much more accurate? Is he going to be able to decipher a defense quicker than Jalen? What are we really going to learn from Gardner Minshew in 1 week that's going to help us evaluate what Jalen Hurts is or isn't?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily about Jalen Hurts as it's about Nick Sirianni's offense. In other words, if take Nick out of it, take Jalen out of it, if you're Howie Roseman, you got to evaluate both, right? You have to evaluate, is Jalen Hurts the quarterback of the future? You have to evaluate, did you make the right decision with Nick Sirianni, an offensive coach, an offensive play caller, an offensive schemer? You just heard I gave you the questions that Nick Sirianni answered about the passing game, admitting, that's my baby, essentially, is what he said. And it hasn't been effective, which he admitted. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to overstate it because Gardner Minshew isn't Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, it's a guy who completed 66% of his passes last season. It's a guy who has been able to throw the ball effectively at times. And remember, you're not facing the 85 Bears, unfortunately, in
Right.
Jody Mack week. You're
Yeah.
facing a bad
Jet
football team.
defense is nothing special right now.
So this is sort of a laboratory. In other words, look, if Gardner stinks it up throwing the football, you say, well, maybe this offense isn't that good. Maybe this offense, I've seen, um, ex NFL personnel people on Twitter saying, what's up with these route concepts? What's going on? Maybe they're not helping Jalen Hurts enough in the passing game, or maybe Jalen Hurts doesn't get the football out on time. Maybe Jalen Hurts is not pulling the trigger quickly enough when things are there. I've heard those criticisms of Jalen Hurts. You learn something about the offense. And by learning something about Nick Sirianni's offense, you learn something about Jalen Hurts' ability to run it and where do the Eagles want to be. We talked yesterday, Jody. I think it's one of the rare times you agree with me. Look, you can win the games. You can win games running the football. No question. People do it every week. But the margin of error is smaller. And you saw it. Turnovers, holding penalties, bang. Then what are you going to do? You can run it on 1st and 20, but your effectiveness is going to go down. You might even convert occasionally, but it's going to go way down. You've got to be able to throw from the pocket at some point in the modern NFL. I think the Eagles would gather valuable intelligence about this offense and about their quarterback if they saw somebody else in a very small sample size. And then you go right back after the bye and he's healthy and he's got 2 weeks and you make the run and you serve the two masters and then you can make your decisions. You can make a better decision in the offseason whether you're going to go after Russell Wilson or try to convince Deshaun Watson, Philadelphia's Miami of the North, and or draft Kenny Pickett or do whatever you want to do. You could do all these things and you'd have more information to make a better decision.
John, I follow your concept to the T. I get it. I understand it. And it could be really helpful. But there's a variable in there. And the variable is the quarterback that you're putting in. I got no idea. Well, I know we have his career stats in Jacksonville. Well, we're now almost a full year removed from that. And you're picking a guy up and throwing him in there when he's thrown how many balls this year? He played at the tail end of their big blowout game. Did that give him anything to base an appearance on?
No, and again, it's to me, it's not about Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's a backup quarterback.
It has to be, John. It has to be in part about Gardner Minshew because he's going to be playing. So you can't just, put Gardner Minshew to the side and just let's evaluate everything else. Somebody's going to be pulling the trigger on the plays. Somebody has to go out there and actually quarterback the team. So you can't take Gardner Minshew out of the equation. What is Gardner Minshew? I don't even know what Gardner Minshew is right now.
Well,
so
he's a more
with him pulling the trigger.
He's a more advanced passer than Jalen Hurts, or he had been. Now he's like like backup I mean, sometimes backup quarterbacks don't play for 16. Now it's 17 weeks. Don't play for 16 weeks, 17 weeks. Somebody gets hurt. They got to go in year 2, year 3. That's part of being a backup quarterback. What I mean by it's not about Gardner Minshew, obviously it's about his performance on the field. But even if you're a coach and you're watching film and say, okay, this progression, like the last play of the game, was designed to go to Devontae Smith, was 1A, as Nick described it. Dallas Goedert was 1B. Now, from Nick's perspective, they took Dallas Goedert away, which seemed to be Patrick Graham's number one game plan was to take Dallas Goedert away. They took him away. There was a very small window to get the football to Devontae Smith early in the routes. If he pulled the trigger right away, but he also said there was some bad route running from Devontae and Quez Watkins. They were running sort of a double crossing route, and they didn't, do it well enough where you get the proper rubs and things like that. So all of that kind of mixed in. As a coach, though, you understand what's supposed to be accomplished on a particular play. Like, in other words, if Gardner Minshew's in there and he makes the right read, he knows where the football's supposed to go, the ball's out, but it's an incomplete pass, you have that information. You're like, okay, it was there. He made the right decision. The ball was out. I know my system worked. And on this particular play, we didn't execute. Like, you have all that information as a coach, or if it's Howie Roseman, he could ask Andy Weidel and say, yeah, this is what's supposed to be accomplished on this particular play. Gardner was really quick with the processing, or maybe he wasn't quick, or blah, blah, blah. You have all that information. And I just think that is the more important part, and that's what I would be trying to say. And by the way, I want to say this again, because I know how people take things out of context. I'm not saying the Eagles are even thinking about this. I'm not saying that's their plan. I'm saying if you take advantage of an injury situation at 50-50 where a guy's not going to be effective because he's, obviously his biggest strength is his mobility and he's going to be limited, he might show up Wednesday and be fine. And none of this is even a question. But if he's really struggling, if he's hurt more than people let on, I would think about it, especially because you can also spin as we have the bye week after the Jets game. So you got a full 2 weeks to recover. I don't think you'd have that uprise in the locker room. And Barrett's right, because people love Jalen Hurts. They would not take that well if they're not going to bench him. And that's why I keep saying they're not going to do it. I'm saying only in the indication where the injury is real and it's 50-50 and they're trying to push him to get back on the field. I wouldn't push him to get back on the field. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough. And I know you're trying to qualify it as best you can because some people just go, why is he hating on Jalen Hurts? You're not.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to do. But you could do that at every position on this team.
Yeah.
Let's play Nate Herbig at center this week because we can get a read on whether the offense works when you've got a lesser center in the.
Yeah, but you don't have to do it with certain players. Like Jason Kelce, Jason Kelce's Jason Kelce. He might go to the Hall of Fame. You're trying to evaluate not only the quarterback for the long term.
No, I'm not trying to evaluate Jason Kelce. I know what Jason Kelce. I'm trying to evaluate Nate Herbig as a center.
No, but Jason is so entrenched as a player. Look, if he can't play, he can't play. And then, it's a legitimate conversation. But, Jason Kelce is going to play. He came in last week, and he's going to try to play. You all know all that. So that's my only discussion of, look, if you can't play, okay, that's different. I'm saying in Kelce's case, you're going to defer to him. In Hurts's case, I would say if it's 50-50, I would say, look, medical people, shut them down. That's what I would do.
Fair enough. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We got guest number 2 for today's show coming up next. It's our buddy from the first state, although he lives here in Pennsylvania. He writes for the Delco Times. Coming up next is our pal Bob Groats. He's going to jump aboard Birds 365.